Hello there, my name is Valerie, and today I'm going to be starting a new series of videos on some of my favorite authors, how I got hooked on their books, what their books are like, and why their books are amazing. So today's video is going to be about one of my favorite authors of all time, Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is synonymous with murder mysteries. She was a British writer who wrote more than 80 mystery novels, short story collections, and plays, as well as 6 non-mystery novels which she wrote under a pseudonym, and her books are only outsold by Shakespeare and the Bible. She was born in England in 1890, and her first novel, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, was published in 1920. It features her most well-known detective, Belgian private investigator Hercule Poirot. He's amusingly arrogant and is always going on about the importance of using one's little gray cells in the brain to reflect on the known facts of a case. Her other most well-known detectives include Miss Marple, a little old lady who no one suspects of solving murder mysteries, and a married couple named Tommy and Tuppence. Between 1920 and her death in 1976, Agatha Christie wrote 66 mystery novels, 2 of which were published posthumously, and several short story collections. And her play, The Mousetrap, is still the world's longest-running play. So how did I get hooked on Agatha Christie books? Well, to answer that question, we have to go back a very long time to when I was 11 years old, and my mother, who was a huge Agatha Christie fan, had been trying to get me to read her books for months, but I was convinced that because they were murder mysteries, they would inherently be scary, and I was a chicken. Then one day, we were at a bookstore, and we found ourselves in the mystery section, and there were all the Agatha Christie books. And my mom was standing there trying to convince me to get one, and I said, "But Mom, what if they're scary?" And I will never forget, standing nearby, there was this elderly, very sophisticated looking lady, and she looked up at us all of a sudden and said in a faint English accent, "Agatha Christie books are not scary." And she said it with such conviction that I instantly believed her when I had not believed my mother for 6 months. So that day we went home with the ABC Murders because my mom had said that it was one of her favorites, and we also got Crooked House, which, by the way, is amazing. It would be years before I would read them. Fast forward to when I was 12. We had just moved to a new town, we were visiting our new library, possibly for the first time, and again found ourselves in a similar situation in front of a shelf full of Agatha Christie books. My mom knew that I still hadn't read Crooked House or the ABC Murders, and so somehow she convinced me to get And Then There Were None. So despite the fact that And Then There Were None is actually one of Agatha Christie's creepier novels, I read it and adored it. It's still one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it multiple times, and when I was in Spain I actually got the Spanish version of the book too, which I have read. So I really like this book. Basically in this book there are 10 strangers who are mysteriously invited to an island off the coast of England. While they're there, shortly before dinner, the first night that they arrive, they hear a voice from the other room which accuses each of them specifically of a murder. And after that point in the book, the guests start to die off one by one, and it's left to the remaining guests to determine who is doing the killing. So once I read And Then There Were None, I was hooked. That was it. I very quickly read, after that, Murder on the Orient Express. I know this was the second one I read because I remember thinking later that it was a little sad that I read 2 of her very best books first, because after that, the rest are very good as well, but it was a shame that I didn't save these for later. And I also read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is much better than the title sounds. I know the title is boring, but trust me, it's very good. And I also read Death on the Clouds, and so on and so forth. I read a lot of her books. So in high school, my friends all knew I was a huge Agatha Christie fan, and one of my friends who was not a huge fan of mysteries had a ton of Agatha Christie books that a neighbor had given her, and she very, very kindly gave them to me, which is how I went home from her house one day with a trash bag full of 40 Agatha Christie novels. And that was how I started amassing the collection on this shelf. I'm happy to say I now own, to my knowledge, everything Agatha Christie ever published, aside from a small collection of poems, which I don't have, but I probably will get it at some point. In fact, some of my books are literally falling apart because some of the ones that my friend gave me and some of the other used books I've gotten over the years were old, and so I've had to start replacing them with these new editions that came out recently, and I'm not complaining at all because they're really pretty. So these are the only two I have of the new editions so far, but I really, really like them. So why do I love Agatha Christie's books so much? I think what first drew me to them was the puzzle aspect of them, especially the ones where, you know, it's a murder at a dinner party and you know that the murderer must be one of the 8 or 12 suspects that was in the mansion at the time, and so it's just a fun puzzle to try and figure out who had the motive and the opportunity and piece together the clues. So that's a really fun aspect of Agatha Christie novels. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit that despite having read probably at least 50 of her novels and short story collections, I've only ever guessed the murderer correctly 3 times. 3. Those 3 were Ordeal by Innocence, The Clocks, and Third Girl, and I only got The Clocks because I decided I was so frustrated with not getting her books right ever that I was going to take notes while I was reading the book. And I did. And I got it right. So apparently the only way to guess Agatha Christie books correctly, unless you're really lucky, is to take notes. Every time I think that I've guessed it correctly, and every time she fools me yet again. But the other reason I love Agatha Christie books is because they are much more than puzzles. Her books examine the human condition. They explore the motives that could lead a person to take the drastic measure of taking another person's life, like greed, power, revenge, love. Often in the course of these books, what seems to be an idyllic friendship or marriage at the beginning of the book very quickly is shown to be not as picture perfect as you thought. Her characters have deep, dark secrets, they betray one another, they're deeply jealous of one another, and that's not just the murderer, that's usually most of the characters in the book. Her books are an exploration of psychology and what makes people tick, and how people have many, many layers other than the one that they may show to the world. So, if you've never read an Agatha Christie book and want to give one a shot, obviously I can't recommend highly enough And Then There Were None. It's still my favorite. Like I said, it's still one of my favorite books of all time. You also can't go wrong with Murder on the Orient Express. These are probably 2 of her best and 2 of her most well-known books. If maybe you've read some of her more popular books and want to give something else by her a try, I'd recommend Crooked House, which is very good. I'd tell you why it's very good, but I can't because it would spoil everything. Evil Under the Sun, which is a mystery with Poirot, which is a lot of fun. And my favorite short story collection of Agatha Christie's, which you can tell by the way that this book is literally taped together, is Witness for the Prosecution. Especially the title story, Witness for the Prosecution, is fantastic. So if you have any favorite Agatha Christie books that I didn't mention, or maybe one of these is your favorite, or if you know of any other good mystery writers that you'd like to recommend, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for good mysteries to read. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at Reading Random, because reading randomness is too many characters for Twitter. And that's all I have for today, so have a great day. Bye!